Every driver describes the same thing. No turns, no exits, no landmarks that ever change. Just a road that keeps going. And the feeling, consistent across accounts, that stopping would be a mistake. Not a fear, not a thought, a certainty. This is a true story. Or, more accurately, a pattern of true reports tied to the same stretch of road. Drivers who have never met, who didn't know about each other, who weren't looking for anything unusual. They weren't lost, they weren't panicked. They were doing something ordinary when something quietly stopped behaving the way it should. And what makes this case disturbing is not what happened to the drivers, but how uniformly they reacted to something none of them could explain. On paper, the road is unremarkable. 2 lanes, standard asphalt, marked on maps like any other regional route. It cuts through a sparsely populated area, long distances between towns, limited cell service, few reasons to stop unless you have to. During the day, nothing unusual is reported. Traffic flows normally. Travel times make sense. It's only under certain conditions that the pattern begins to appear. Late evening, night, early morning hours, when the road feels emptier than it should. Most drivers describe entering the road casually. Some were commuting, some traveling between towns, some just passing through. They expected 30 minutes, maybe 40. They remember checking the clock. They remember music playing. Nothing felt wrong at first, until they realized they should have seen something by now. An exit, a town sign, a mile marker that made sense. But the road didn't offer any of it. Drivers describe the moment of realization differently. Some say it was subtle, a quiet thought that arrived without urgency. Others say it was immediate, like stepping onto a staircase that should have ended. What they agree on is that nothing external forced the realization. The road didn't change, they did. And almost without exception, this is when the same internal response appeared. Not fear, focus. A tightening awareness that something was wrong, and that stopping to think about it was not an option. Once drivers noticed the road wasn't behaving normally, many tried to verify it. They checked clocks, dashboard displays, wristwatches, phones. At first, time appeared normal. Minutes passed as expected. But distance didn't match. Drivers reported traveling far longer than the road's mapped length allowed. One driver described watching the clock advance while the environment stayed exactly the same. Same curve in the road, same tree line, same stretch of asphalt. Nothing to anchor progress. Several drivers described passing landmarks that felt familiar. A sign that appeared more than once, a bridge crossed multiple times, a stretch of road that looked identical but shouldn't have repeated. In some cases, drivers were certain they had already passed the same marker. In others, they couldn't be sure, only that the environment felt looped. The road never announced a repetition. It simply allowed it to happen. Some reports mention changes in the vehicle itself, engines sounding strained despite steady speed, headlights dimming briefly before returning to normal, fuel gauges behaving inconsistently. In most cases, nothing failed outright, but everything felt resistant, like the car was allowed to keep going, but not encouraged to stop. This is where the accounts become unsettlingly similar. Drivers describe the same thought arriving without conscious reasoning. Do not stop. Not because of danger they could see, not because of anything threatening, but because stopping felt like the wrong move in a way they couldn't explain. Several drivers slowed down, never fully stopping, Almost all of them reported the same reaction: immediate discomfort, an increase in pressure, a tightening sensation in the chest. So they accelerated again. What's notable is not what happened next, it's what didn't. Across dozens of accounts, there is no confirmed report of a driver fully stopping. No one turned the engine off, no one exited the vehicle, and no one tried to walk away. Not because they were told not to, because every driver knew, instinctively, that doing so would be a mistake. Every driver describes the ending the same way. There is no warning, no gradual change. The road simply ends. A familiar junction appears, a recognizable town sign, streetlights, buildings, other cars. Normality returns instantly. No transition period, no sense of crossing a boundary, just a sudden awareness that the road is done with them. Drivers describe a wave of relief that arrives before they have time to think. Tension releases, breathing slows. Several report laughing, not because anything is funny, but because the pressure is suddenly gone. It feels like being allowed to stop holding your breath. And yet, that relief never lasts. Once drivers check the time, the second realization hits. Hours are missing. One driver expected a 30-minute trip and arrived nearly 5 hours later. Another entered the road just after midnight and emerged in early daylight. Fuel usage doesn't line up. Distance traveled doesn't line up. Receipts, timestamps, phone logs. Nothing explains the gap. Many drivers check their phones. Calls placed during the drive, never connected. Messages appear unsent. Some report notifications arriving all at once, as if the device had been offline without showing it. There are no emergency alerts, no official interruptions, just silence. Drivers attempt to rationalize what happened. Fatigue, misjudged time, monotony. But none of those explanations account for the shared instinct. The same decision, the same restraint, and the same certainty that the road allowed them to leave, not because they escaped, but because it decided they were done driving. When drivers eventually report their experiences, they're usually met with calm dismissal. Authorities acknowledge the road exists. They acknowledge breakdowns and accidents, but there is no record of prolonged travel. No reports of infrastructure failure, no documented reason for time discrepancies. In some cases, drivers are advised to rest more. In others, the incident is quietly logged and never revisited. No warnings are issued, no signs are added. What's more telling is what happens afterward. Drivers don't return to the road intentionally, not out of fear, but out of certainty. Several people interviewed years later said they would take longer routes just to avoid that stretch entirely. When asked why, they struggle to answer. They don't believe the road is dangerous. They believe it has rules, and that they already learned one of them. Across every account, there is one shared behavior. No one stops. No one turns around. And no one challenges the road by stepping out of the vehicle. Not because they were told not to, because every driver understood instantly that continuing forward was the correct response. The road doesn't force compliance, it invites it. Today, the road still exists. During daylight hours, it behaves exactly as expected. Drivers pass through without incident, travel times align, nothing feels unusual. It doesn't advertise itself, It doesn't trap people. It waits. What makes this case unsettling is not that people got lost. It's that they all knew what to do. Without discussion, without instruction. They drove, they didn't stop, and they were released only after the road decided they had gone far enough. Some places don't need explanations. They only need compliance.